What's up, everyone? Blake Sloan here, Mr. Alex Proud, here to talk about another awesome edition of Agent Success Podcast. And so overall today, we're going to talk about two main things. One of those is what's one of the main reasons that we notice agents fail in today's marketplace, right? Specifically, somebody who's maybe been a few years or less, and it has to do with really one thing coming down to the daily disciplines.
Yes.
And we'll kind of dig into that as I've tested this, and it's kind of a big aha for me lately. And the second thing we'll talk about is how to coach yourself. And this is something that's a big aha we've learned ourselves in that regard, because there's a way to do that where you can actually coach yourself. And obviously you need some other coaching, but that's one of the things that we're hearing a lot, that people aren't getting the detailed coaching they want. And so if you want to go back, and so it comes down to one thing, really. It comes down to your skill of seduction and sales process. And so this is something I was teaching to our team this week, that the reality of your bank account as a salesperson comes down to how good you are at influencing and persuasion, period, right? At least in our business. And so there could be a challenge of leads, which is a lot of agents' problems. That's something totally separate. We're assuming that you have access to leads here, right? And so if that's not the case, you have a major problem. You're never going to get above that hurdle if you don't have leads. I mean, that's just the cost of admission to kind of continue forward. If that is a challenge for you, reach out to us. We can help you. You can go to sloantraining.com to watch previous episodes where we talk about that. But ultimately, the thing comes down to one thing. It comes down to the pain of the daily disciplines, right? That's one of the biggest mistakes I see is people know what to do, especially new agents, but they don't do it. And so what I was getting at, and kind of an aha, is everyone kind of knows what to do, but they don't go through that pain of change. And kind of experienced it with new agents, right? Part of what we have to do is we have to help build new habits that you don't have. And so you have these things that you condition you for 10, 20, 30 years in many cases, and you come in and you have to switch them quickly and you don't do it. And so what's been your experience of that, and seeing new people that we train with and people that we're trying to help, that kind of differentiates between the ones that are successful and the ones that aren't?
100%. I mean, I see it all the time. The folks come in, they're red hot when they get in here, they're ready to roll, but then what kicks in is the fact that there has been years and years and years of conditioning behind it, and you have to literally become a new person with disciplines in order to get past that.
And there's two things I think that you need to help you with that. One is accountability, right? Massive accountability. Why? Because you're not going to change unless you truly want to. In that regard, am I saying you got to change who you are? No, but you got to change your daily patterns of what you've done, who you are. That's why you see the people who are highly disciplined make it, right? And so one of the things, like the most important one here is like daily follow-up. And I've seen literally when it makes me angry if I ever see somebody who doesn't succeed, right? In this business at all. And that's obviously why we're shooting this, why we're doing this. But I've noticed that the number one thing that they do that holds them back is they lie. They lie to themselves. Specifically, let's say you have a daily target of what needs to happen, what needs to be done. In this example, I need to make X amount of dials. Let's say it's $50, right? I have a goal of 50 dials. They come in, they say they're going to do that, they're going to follow up with these leads, and they come in, there's a fear there sometimes, and what happens? They don't do it, right? And so they go home, they pretend like they did, they tell their person that's helping them or their family or whatever it is, well, I made my $50, this is a tough business, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And what happens is they're not living in a place of the code, which what we call the code, which is living in full truth. Did I do it? Did I not do it? And so part of that is building a daily disciplines. What I want to have you consider why I'm talking about this. Some of y'all say, hey, look, this is some super simple stuff. But what I'm getting at is you got to build a discipline. I'm going to build on this in a second. You've got to build that through outside things. Like right now, you're doing a thing called 75 Hard, right? Talk about what that's like in changing that, and what happens, how you have one deeper level commitment, one area of your life bleeds into the other area of life of what your commitment levels are.
So it's very simple. There's 5 elements to it, and I won't go through all of them in depth, but they're very simple things to the day. It basically has to do with workout, diet, and your accountability to yourself. And you have to do it 75 days in a row. And on the surface, it seems very simple. Just like knowing what you have to do, like calling 50 people, is very simple. However, what happens is as day 5 comes, as day 10 comes, day 15 comes, it becomes increasingly difficult to remain in that discipline. But if you can get through 75 days of it, you're a different man than you were in the beginning. And that's the point.
And you build that discipline from the inside out, right? And so if some of y'all struggle with that, obviously something's got to change in that regard. And I want you to just ask yourself, what about your life has to change from a discipline standpoint? And I'm going to have you guys consider as well the fastest way to build discipline and mindsets through your body.
Absolutely.
You think I'm crazy, but we have that happen. There's always a correlation in those two, right? The hardest thing for anybody to have discipline is their body. And so if you can do that and ask yourself, are you where you need to be right now in your body? Take a true, real look at yourself. what have your patterns been? What have your habits been? I'm going to guarantee you in most cases, it bleeds over. In rare instances, do I see that there's people who are very good at what they do in real estate that will sacrifice other parts of their life. I've done that before.
Sure.
And so that is kind of a rare outlier, so to speak. But what I'm getting at is you have to have the accountability to yourself to set daily targets. And so if I had to simplify this down, like pick a specific amount of dials you need, right? What's my dials, my texts, my follow-up? How am I going to do that? And so while I'm on that, right, that's something today's time you got to think like a ninja. You think like a ninja in your follow-up with your sellers, your buyers, whatever it is. In today's time, we're on a webinar yesterday, right? It takes at least 15 calls sometimes to get anyone to answer the phone. Mm-hmm. And so you got to be relentless in your follow-up. And so now it's so much harder to differentiate from everyone else out there when you got, like the example today I was talking about, car warranty people. Y'all probably getting blown up by car warranties and everything else and robocalls and all this. So you have to work harder to differentiate. And I'll notice one thing that's happened lately from outside, like people trying to sell me stuff, is if they're really good, they'll call, leave voicemail, and they text. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing we preach here. So make sure you're hitting multifaceted so they know you're human. Right? Hey, this is Blake Sloan. Just to let you know I am a human. I'm with so-and-so. Here it is. Just following up with you, see how your search is going. Also, text. Hey, this is Blake. Just to let you know I'm a real human. I'm here to help serve you, whatever it may be. And so you're able to have that follow-up and make sure you're hitting multifaceted. I'm not going to get too much detail and share the strategy behind why we do that, but that's something that we teach here, and obviously in that regard. What are your thoughts over on that?
You have to be multifaceted in pretty much any business these days. It's not just about real estate. It's actually about anywhere in your life. If you want to be multifaceted in a relationship to make it work, your communication's got to be on point in person, over the phone, via text, or sometimes there's going to be a disconnect and it's going to fall apart. So it can hit every area of your life if you're not multifaceted.
Yep. Second thing I'll talk about, second part of this, and some of y'all are like, oh, that's super simple. We can build on that, obviously, but I'm telling you, if the discipline and the basic parts aren't, there's just something I'm seeing as we interview other people, as we brought on more people, as we kind of expanded. Those are the hardest things. We're like, man, I'll do it. And you go back to the facts, they actually didn't do it, right? And so that's something that's a very, very important way to understand and do that and be able to look at the second thing here. By far, the fastest way to grow your business is to coach yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Coach yourself. What do you mean by that? Record your telephone conversations going out. Record your presentations when you're face-to-face, and you will have some massive, holy crap, game-changing revelations from that, because here's the facts. You're not as good as you think you are. Mm-mm. I wasn't as good as I thought I was, initially starting to do this. And looking back, one of the best things that ever happened to me was my very first coach named Frank from Canada actually made me record my calls, every single call, and send it to him. And I would notice I wouldn't even have to send it to him. I would get better by listening to my own stuff. And that's something that, even from a video standpoint, my coach now is very, very hardcore, so to speak, on watching your videos and going back through it, because you can know how to change in what you do. And so in our situation, it's your buyer presentation, your listing presentation. And I've had this happen with people on our team. We will obviously coach them, and we role play, and we listen to those in our meetings and stuff. We go through that because you go crazy like that. And we did an experiment, I may have mentioned in a previous podcast. We had people rank themselves. Rank yourself in call quality, rank yourself in sticking to the script, rank yourself and something else here. And the fourth one was, would you do business with you?
It was energy.
Energy, that's right, energy. Yeah. And so what happens, we've asked them to rank themselves 7, 8, 9, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9. And we go through and we play the call. And I mentioned this thing in the last podcast, right? And they would slink down the seat like, oh my goodness. Because here's the thing. You're not as good as you think you are. And that's okay. Like, the reality is you've got to embrace that to be able to pull the power from that. Mm-hmm. It's not until I'm willing to stand in the fire and stay on that foundation that I can change that outcome, right? And so as we've done that, that's the fastest way to grow. And I've done that with some of our people last year who were some younger guys. And what was happening is they were struggling with the presentation. Mm-hmm. And so I was recorded, and I want you to listen to it before you meet with me. And they would listen to it, and they would know exactly what the problem was before we even had to meet, because they heard it themselves. In your mind, you're going so fast, you're not realizing what you do. Like mine, obviously, I talk super fast. That's a problem for me that I have to constantly make sure I try to regulate and pull back. But a lot of the times when I would do it myself, I'd be like, holy crap, did I really say that? Did that come out my mouth? And this is obviously way back. And so that's something that I've experienced. What's been your experience in watching people and teaching people going through that process?
It's no different. It's, I almost don't even have to communicate what's going on when we listen to the thing. They know right away. They can identify transparency exercise, and it was so valuable when I was doing it for myself too. Just listening to what I did, my ums, my ahs, where did I drop the ball, what question didn't I ask? I know it when I listen to it. It's hard to know it in the moment when you're doing it. But I promise you, if you hear yourself doing it the wrong way, the next time you're going to be a lot more aware of it and you're going to do a lot better.
And part of why that is, like, what's the overall reason why this is? And this is kind of some deeper level psychology for some of you all, obviously way more experience. That's why I was telling him before, like, I want to go like super deep in this stuff because I study it. I'm a huge student of sales psychology, human psychology. But the reality is, here's what. People are subconsciously reading your energy. They don't really know what they're doing. They're just thinking in my head, do I trust this guy or girl or do I not trust him? And so what happens is as you're adding more ums and ahs and whatever it may be in that process, there's a lack of certainty. The number one thing that sells more than anything else out there for anyone is certainty. And so as you're thinking about the next word, you're trying to think about where you're going next, and you're not leading in that right realm. What's happening is their subconscious is reading energetically a lack of certainty to help guide them in that process, right? And so what happens is when you're in tune with that, and here's the thing, it will not happen without reps, meaning that you listen, adjust. Listen, adjust. And you go through that process to make sure you can do so to help guide yourself better and coach yourself. Now, if you want to grow much faster, what do you need to do? Have someone who's already been there and jumped that gap, so to speak, to help you pull back and say, well, dude, you probably should have said this, you should have said that, and kind of what's been your experience to help people see that?
I think it's been valuable for both them and for me. I mean, as I help people sharpen their skill set, it continues to sharpen mine. So it's not just a one-way command type of deal. It's actually a two-way synergistic relationship there, and it helps both of us out in the long run.
And I think what it does is kind of the last thing here, and I'm going to build this in the next podcast, just so you guys, I wanted to make sure everybody's on the same foundation, and then we can obviously build, because we taught this at a very high level this week. So what happens there's not a hyper awareness of what you're doing. It's not until you get to the point of hyper awareness will you get that true gift of what you missed. And we talked about this before. Like today, we had an example of somebody who went through a call. In their mind, they just thought, "Wow, man, this person wasn't convertible." But when you listen to it from the outside, when I heard it, I knew in 2 seconds what was off. The energy was off, right? The energy in regards to how they're communicating, and their tonality was off. Because what happened was a lady had submitted her name, the husband answered, and so the very minute he heard the husband, his energy went down because he's like all crap in his head, and I could hear it. Well, guess who else heard it? The husband and his energy heard that same thing happen. If he would have came through with certainty, we already knew the person was buying. They've been on the site for almost a year, 230-something visits. And what happens is we knew they're looking to buy, but he kind of just fell into that, but he did not have the certainty still. And so part of that is if you're not recording yourself, you will not hear that lack of certainty or lack of energy or lack of a passing on of energy to the next person because you're so busy thinking about what's happening. And so what this does on the outside is let you slow down time. And you can look and say, holy crap, I should have done this. Holy crap, I should have done this. And what it does, it shortens the gap of transformation for you as a salesperson to get better. This is something that we work on all the time. If you want to know more about this, obviously I'm trying to keep it short here, is make sure that you're studying the deep, deep levels and being obsessed, becoming the absolute best sales psychologist that you can. If you want to learn more about us, kind of what we do, go to sloantraining.com. Hopefully this helps. Let us know your feedback, and we'll see you in the next video.